This is the Gullix from the Fragments of Silicon podcast. We will make an announcement about the next season of the Fragments of Silicon podcast within this week. We will be holding a podcast in a few minutes, but please be aware we will not talk about the next season yet.
All right, welcome to, I guess, the first part of the season finale of Fragments of Silicon. Mainly because we have a Friday show this week.
It's been a while since we had a doubleheader finale.
Indeed, I can't remember the last time this happened. At any rate, with that in mind, this is the last Wednesday program until the new season, which is in a couple of weeks. So with that in mind, I'm your host, Adam. Joining as always are Petty and Galix. Let us get to the news. Petty, you start us off this week.
Well, I guess the biggest thing is tomorrow they're going to be putting in my new pool. Yay! Must resist urge to stream podcast from pool.
That's probably not a good idea unless you have some waterproofing.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's going to be fun. And then, other than that, it's been overall real quiet, just because I can't really go anywhere, because, can't drive and the parents are working 9 to 5s, Monday through Friday. I guess another fun thing, at least Saturday, I'm going to be going to a Digimon tournament. So, hooray, I get to still play the card game.
I mean, at least for a tournament.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like you have a regular replacement for your old card shop.
Nope, not currently. And I have no idea when or if that'll ever materialize, It's one of those, I don't know if I mentioned this, but they were able to secure enough money to keep the intellectual property of the card shop. So theoretically, if they can get funds like online or whatever, they could reopen again under the same name. But
right.
Unknown how long that will be, if ever. But yeah, I can guarantee you they're not going to be, letting people put in orders for 30 grand in cards again without like a certified wire transfer or cash. But yeah. Gaming wise, I actually did start putting some time into Have a Nice Death, I believe it's called. Yes, it's the roguelike action platform from, I think, Gearbox. It's so far fun. And then apparently Ogre is going to see about starting the process of building the new computer sometime this week. So I'm not fully for sure when or if we're gonna be able to do any like co-op streams and stuff. It really depends, how long the build takes and if there's any problems. But I can always figure out a plan B if needed, if we need content for the break. And I guess that's it from me.
All right, Galix, you're up.
Not too much going on over here. My aunt and uncle from Virginia just are in the state. They lived up here in Bangor for a little while years ago, so they're up visiting, and They visited us last night, and that was nice to see them. Plus, their daughter, who lives in Massachusetts, came too. I guess they were all doing it as a trip. So that was nice to see them. It's not this weekend, but next weekend is when we have the Digimon pre-release for the next set, so
Oh man.
looking forward to that.
Looking forward to watch everyone go nuts over Magnamon X antibody again.
I guess. It's a pre-release, so, whoever gets it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and apparently somebody already pre-sold it for over $70. I'm looking at like, Jesus, guys, don't buy pre-sale.
I've never bothered doing a big vaccines or armors deck, but it would be nice to if it wasn't so overrated.
I mean, the problem is the new Magna X is broken as hell.
Well, yeah. So yeah, that's coming up. I ordered for my Pathfinder game. I guess Hero Forge has some kind of summer sale going on, so I ordered some figures for my characters for the next game we're doing.
Make figures?
Yeah.
Mark? Because I remember like my the card shop when they're going out of business, they had a big old tote full of Hero Forge figurines. Like, Hero Forge, have I ever heard the name? Oh, right.
Yeah, because the guy who's running the next game wants people to get art and figures for their guys that are... Like, it doesn't have to be custom, but my concepts are usually... I'm trying to do something weird.
Fair.
So that's where that... So I ordered those. Those were kind of expensive. And I found someone to commission art from, but it's quite expensive, so I'm not 100%.
Yeah. As someone who has a, custom done avatar, I'm like, this was a little on the expensive side, but I'm making use of it,
I'm trying to find someone else to do some of it, but...
Yeah, sadly, my artist is currently on hiatus, so I would have directed you to her, but...
Well, that's part of the thing, is I had, one person that I got art for everybody in the current campaign for Christmas last year, but they've been concerned about AI art and stuff, so they're working on a different art style and doing some game work or something.
Yeah.
And someone else I found from a friend said they'd love to do it, but then they ended up being too busy. So that's about where I am on that. Video game wise, I've been keeping up on Splatoon 3, which will be a little bit... Apparently, I did find out it's not going to be that big of a deal, but apparently Nintendo's cutting Twitter integration for probably understandable reasons.
Yeah.
And apparently, I just found out that they apparently do have a thing in mind for replacing that.
Oh, so Miiverse lives anew, possibly.
I think there's not going to be like a separate Miiverse way to access it, but yeah, they're using their own servers apparently.
I missed Miiverse, so if they can bring that back to life, I'm down.
I would also be down for that.
I doubt they're going to bring back Miiverse. At least, not while the Switch is, in its last year of operation.
I guess it also depends on what the next Switch is going to be, if it's going to be a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro.
Yeah, anyway, the features of the next thing will probably not rely on social media that is liable to be purchased by a madman.
That's the way to put it.
So yeah, I've been doing that, and also I've gone back to Tears of the Kingdom a bit to work on Compendium and Monster Medals.
Yeah, I just need to restart my save. Outfits. I have no idea where I'm at, and just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do.
You can always look at your adventure log and or warp back to Lookout Landing and ask Burrow what she thinks you should do next.
I guess fair. I'm also not that far in, so restarting probably isn't too much of a pain.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I guess that is something I could also stream on break if,
I mean, like, I might forget that I'd been in the middle of fucking grinding Elemental Lizalfo's tails, which I got to the point, the final upgrades for the Elemental costumes require so many of these tails, and they drop so rarely from enemies that are not the most common.
Mm-hmm.
I considered trying to use an item duping glitch for it, and the remaining item duping glitch in the current version of the game does not work on elemental items because they explode when thrown and you have to throw them as part of the duping.
Mm. Meanwhile, I'm over here
So
with
I'm like,
my fake amiibos.
huh?
I have some like NSC tags that turned into like fake amiibos, so I can just use those.
I have literally every Zelda amiibo real amiibo. They don't drop monster tails.
Oh, they don't?
Each one only drops specific stuff. And also, I found it interesting. Almost all of them drop the same things as they dropped in Breath of the Wild.
Mm.
And that means that they almost entirely only drop things that are not new to this game.
I could have sworn one of the Link ones drops various monster parts, but I could be wrong.
I think the Bokoblin and Ganondorf ones have a chance of dropping, like, specifically Bokoblin guts.
Mm. But yeah, anyway.
Okay, anyway, it's a pain, but that's one of the things I'm doing.
Mm.
That's about it. The next Splatfest is probably going to be. They're probably going to announce it in game this weekend or so, and then it'll be the weekend after that. So,
Shouldn't
I'll
they
have
be
to
winding
decide.
down on Splatfest soon?
I think this is the last or second to last one that is known
Mm.
or that ever had any data mined about it. That doesn't mean they can't add more later
Correct.
or rerun them, but
Yeah.
yes, it is getting kind of close to the end. I also still need to run side order a few more times to get the various equipment from the shop for that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's about where I am.
Okay, I'm assuming you're done.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess it's my go. Let's see. I think I've done about all I need to do in terms of paperwork in regards to the accident. So
Right.
that's good. Now it's just more waiting at this point. So, um, but that's fine by me as long as I don't have to sign more forms.
Mm.
Anyway, got my lab results back. They are good, very good.
Hooray.
Yeah, I'm like, um, without going into
I'm
detail
glad you
about it,
didn't fail lab.
I was thinking
like,
it. Get the hell out of my head, Gollux.
though the concern is, my blood pressure's been elevating again in recent times, which is not a surprise. I'm thinking it might be stress induced or
You
anxiety
think?
induced. Like, well, it's not confirmed.
Fair.
It's like, I mean, the doctor's office has been hot and cold about it because it doesn't stay elevated.
You're like me.
Like, so I'm supposed to go to the doctors tomorrow, so we'll see what they have to say, or rather, we'll see if they either up the prescription dosage of what I'm currently taking, or if they give me a new medication. Like, hopefully it's a thing that can be sorted quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in terms of games, since we are about to hit the seasonal break, that means my queue is clear for a measure of time.
At
So
least a
I've
week.
been couple weeks, really.
Fair. Yeah, because we're not doing a
Keep in mind.
preseason review this time around.
No, we are. But I'm keep in mind, I'm also, including the time in this week.
Fair.
Yeah. The point is, I've started up Morrowind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm vanilla Morrowind at that.
Oh,
Just
wow.
just to get a sense, just to see if it would work because of how old it is. It works surprisingly well, though.
Are you playing it on
will have.
Steam?
Yeah.
That's why they updated so it'll work on modern OSs. If you were playing the disc, it would not work.
Yeah, it's I am going to have to find some mods to at the very least, bump up the resolution because it's stuck in. Well, it's stuck in 720p, so it's stuck in it's stuck in a resolution that's every time I go in, it shrinks the windows.
I mean, in fairness, that was baller when Morrowind came out. You were a high roller if you had 720p, but yeah, nowadays it's
I know
laughable.
that. I know that's that was an impressive resolution for 2002, but for 2024, it's a bit creaky.
Nowadays, if your game can't support 720p, what is wrong with it?
Or you're going exceedingly retro.
Fair.
Anyway, point is, also I need to find something that increases the speed because it's slow. It is slow.
The memories are coming back, and I hate you for making me relive this.
I'm like I said, I wanted to see what Morrowind Vanilla was like, and I'm yeah, it needs some improving.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the time to sit down and futz about with mods.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why I never consider myself a true PC gamer, is because I do not have the patience to mod the shit out of my games to get the most out of them.
I mean, modding. Well, here's the thing: it's a Bethesda game. Modding a Bethesda game isn't that hard. I mean, maybe Morrowind here because it's so old.
I was about to say, does Morrowind have workshop support?
Yeah, it's I'd have to look into that, but it's more like Fallout 4 has mod support, for example. And there are fucking repositories of mods.
Oh, yeah.
For Bethesda games. Though hint, the most popular mods are either going to be the ones that make the game run better or not break, or the nudes. Anyway, that's my news for the week. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Andy Cargile of Bad Zombie Studios. Or, sorry, Bad Zombie Games.
Howdy, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Ooh. You're a bit echoey. I know you were having a different echo problem.
1, 2, 3.
That's
still
better.
An echo?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. I'm excited to hear your questions and talk about Bad Zombie Games.
Very good. So, how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the studio, the game, and all of that business. Anyway, so we do this by asking this particular question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Ooh, good one. Well, I actually started video games way back with Pong, really. I'm 62, so I had a Pong set. I grew up with all sorts of the different platforms. It's fun to see the retro come back now. I always liked playing games, but then professionally, when I was in grad school, I did a video game which is kind of like Mortal Kombat versus the immune system for game-based learning. And that really turned me on to gaming. I didn't have a chance to really get involved with that until a few years ago, about 8 years ago. I worked for Smart Technologies and started their game-based learning group as an internal startup, and been making games ever since.
Hmm. And where did you enter into the industry?
When did I enter into the industry?
No. Where did you enter? Like, was Bad Robot Games your first venture, or did you work elsewhere? Or sorry, Bad
Oh,
Zombie
got it.
Games.
Yeah, I was a designer, so I've been doing UX design, interface design for a whole bunch of years. I worked in hardware, worked in software, all the
Oh.
different interaction models, touch, gesture, haptics, VR, all of that stuff. And I finally decided that I was kind of done with UX when I had the opportunity to start this internal startup at Smart Technologies. And I knew it was a risky venture, but it was really great, especially working with kids and helping them learn fractions. Those were the first games that I did.
And how did that opportunity arise?
I'm laughing because it was a lot of hard work and elbow grease and condensing. Really, Smart Technologies, if you all are familiar with it, they do the smart boards. They've been doing that for 30 years. They were looking for some new ways of getting revenue.
I
um,
had in elementary school, we had one of those smart board things,
right?
and that damn thing always broke down.
I was
I
gonna
didn't hear
say
that.
I've never actually had one, but all I can picture is that it literally breaking sometime in the first month of school and then going the rest of the school year with just a whiteboard leaned up against it.
Yeah, they were
Basically,
tough,
yeah.
especially early on.
Although it was funny when the one kid decided to draw on it with Sharpie, and that had to be
Oh yeah,
fixed.
we,
And I'm sure somebody was
we had a lot of
screaming
that.
internally, but that'll get us way off into the weeds.
Yeah, it's fun. The kids do a lot of IT on the boards. They do it pretty well. Um, anyway, we were looking for some new opportunities, and we had a software business, a fledgling software business that we were starting. And what I wanted to do was take some of the things that they had done on smartboards. They had a lot of games on learning games on smartboards, and actually take that out and actually do game based learning with something really hard, which is fractions. Teachers hate them, kids hate them, parents hate them because they don't know how their kids are being taught fractions. And I figured if we could make a game that kids enjoyed and learned fractions along the way, then we could probably do anything there. And that worked out pretty well. Um, Making money, much harder.
Something like that, you pretty much have to get a school to buy a license and to make much of anything off of it.
Well, that's kind of where we went. We created a service called Frontera. With this was it. The pandemic hit us hard. We were going to sell all of this through the schools, but then the schools all shut down early on. So we pivoted and created uh, a service called Frontera, subscription service, where we had a lot of learning software and things like that. Subscription services are notoriously hard to build up from scratch. So that was a little bit of the tough challenge there. We got to a point where we had almost a full curriculum of the fraction games, and we could add it into some of the sales deals. But it really wasn't a lot of money coming in on that front. So when things got tight, they decided that having two businesses that weren't doing well was better than having three. And so they laid me off. I was basically that whole division. I had a bunch of contractors working for me, and so that's when I started Bad Zombie Games. I wanted to give my team a softer landing, so I took a second mortgage out on my house, and we built Castaway Station in 4 months.
Ooh, that's quite the turn. Like,
In
if
fairness,
you,
we Smart gave us something that I had not seen done in high tech. We had built a great platform in Unity for games, and my contractors were all worldwide. And we had a really great design process and development process. And so Smart allowed me to use that platform that we had built. So we didn't have to build the platform for a deck builder from scratch in Unity. We could just basically build the game itself, but it was still fast.
right. I mean, yeah, we don't get a lot of people who get who I suppose repurpose a game in 4 months. Like,
Yeah, well, we had a deck builder for young adults based on the Last Kids on Earth series. And it taught 21st century learning skills like creativity and collaboration and communication, critical thinking. So we took that as sort of the outline, and I rewrote the entire narrative, all new characters, new creatures, new game mechanics. It's a collaborative game, so we built a lot into it. But I've also worked with my team for 8 years, so we move pretty quickly, and we have some innovations in how we work. So, for example, my dev team is in Taiwan, 5 of them. Only one speaks English. So early on, I created game design documents that didn't have a lot of text in them. Basically, they were interactive, and they would show you how the game was supposed to work. And that allowed the dev team to code it more accurately in Unity. And we had far, far fewer bugs as a result of that. Another thing we did is we had a game object database, a God, that had, for example, every piece of text in the entire game in it. We had like all of the enemies and characters, stats, all of that stuff. So we could actually, when we were doing playtesting, we could change things on the fly to balance the game without having a rebuild by the devs. I got rid of having to file bugs on typos and things like that. So that just streamlined the process extremely well. And so all of those things contributed to the 4 months.
and what is Castaway Station exactly? Like, like what is the plot, the premise? Who are you? What are you doing, and all that stuff?
Oh, good. I'm glad you started with the narrative. I was going to give you pitch voice and do it's a roguelike deck builder survival game on an alien planet. It actually, when looking at trying to figure out what kind of story I wanted to tell with the game, um, I was thinking about the things like Robinson Crusoe, Swiss Family Robinson, books I read when I was a kid. And it's like if you're in a shipwreck off the coast of a continent you've never seen before, everything is strange. You have to learn what to eat, what's poisonous, what will kill you. And so I wanted to kind of bring that flavor, but in outer space. And I wanted it to be kind of dark, not happy. The first character you meet loses her partner, who's the captain of the ship. There's a lot of that as you meet the different characters. They all have their backstories about how they survived and what they lost. But essentially, the UN Kobayashi, their starship, has some kind of anomaly. Nobody knows what it is. The first character, you, is in a shuttle when the ship blows up. So she sees everything go to hell. And then there are some pods, escape pods, that make it out. But she lands in the shuttle and basically establishes Castaway Station so that she can find the other survivors on this planet and hopefully get to them in time. And then you start off with this one character. The different missions take you to find other characters if they happen to live. And then it becomes a collaborative game where you have two characters you can work with, total of four over the entire game. And as a deck builder, you can play cards from each other's hands if they're teamwork cards. So you get some really interesting dynamics between the superpowers of the different characters.
Hmm. And in terms of characters, are they customizable avatars or are they actual characters?
They're actual characters. There's no customization. We didn't have that built into the system, so I would love to have done that, but we didn't do that. I wanted to add tattoos to some of the characters, but yeah. So they are characters. They're pretty deep. They all have backstories. They all have interests that play into the kinds of cards they have. So, for example, um, Singer, one of the masked characters, basically is a swordsman. He's a fencer, and so one of his first weapons is basically he fabricated a sword, and he does really well with that on the planet. So they all have different backstories. One of them is a robot that happened to be outside fixing something and got blown down to the surface. They find him last.
Hmm. And how many party members, if you will you find over the course of the game? If you can give that away.
Good question. You'll find four of them alive.
Hmm.
Yeah, I no spoilers, but not everybody you find is alive. But when you do find one, you get a bit of a chance to find out their backstory, how they got there. So we have animated cutscenes before each character, once you find each character. So the very first one, obviously with you, YU, her name. And then after that, each time you find a new character and they're alive, then there's a cutscene to how they got to the planet, how they survived, basically. How did they find uh, Pod to get down with? And then after that, you have a single character quest for that particular character that you have to survive in order to keep going. So it kind of takes on the tone of the story while you is setting up Castaway Station. These other characters landed someplace and they had to have survived long enough for you to find them. And if you don't survive that first mission or two in that other character, then basically you're not available. It is a roguelike.
Right. So it sounds like permadeath is a thing in this game.
Permadeath is a thing. The good part about it, though, is you do have a total of these four characters. So, if you're starting off with you and you start over. If you're starting off with you and you find Singer and you find Michelle and you find 10-8, the other characters, and then if one of them dies, you can keep going. You can keep going all the way through the game, even if you just have one character left. So permadeath applies to the group, not the individual.
Hmm. Like, and I'm guessing the story will change based on who is alive and who is dead.
To a degree, yeah. The general sort of golden path of the game um, basically takes you through finding all the different characters. If one of the characters dies along the way, the storyline changes a little bit in terms of what they might have contributed, but basically you still get the same missions. And then the diversity of all the enemies and all that stuff is independent of that.
Hmm. And to make things clear, this is a rogue-like and not a rogue-lite, as in
Correct.
it's a light version of rogue. You know,
Correct.
or what that usually means in the modern day is you get permanently upgradable things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yep.
there's none of that in this game.
Oh, sorry. No, there is a legacy system that we implemented. This was based on user feedback, so I guess it morphed a little bit.
Yeah, there we
The
go. Yeah, I find increasingly that is in things that bill themselves even as roguelike. Like,
Yeah, games with no meta progression are often less rewarding in the long, or they're harder to find rewarding for players.
Yeah, this is what we learned. We listened to our play testers and our users. They also really good at giving us feedback on things like the early missions. There's a certain kind of creature that you find early on. It's a pack animal, like wolves, and we just had them in too many places. So I did an update in November where we radically changed the diversity of the monsters you meet early on. In the middle and end parts of the game, you meet all of the wealth of monsters. There's about 50 different ones, but early on, we pushed to introduce some of those early.
mm-hmm.
Oh, and you get to name them because you're in a foreign place. They don't have names. You wouldn't know a name. You get to name them and log your notes in a bestiary so that when you encounter them again, you remember what their particular capabilities are.
Now, is there like a
Well,
default name option, or do you just have to come up with all the names on your own?
There are default options.
Fair enough.
okay. More to the point, is there a profanity filter there?
I mean, that is
No,
I
fair.
mean,
there isn't.
I'm like,
It's a single player game right now. We had aspirations of turning it into like a true multiplayer game. We just couldn't do it in the time and budget that we had. But yeah, you
like
can. There have been some really interesting names that have been put in.
Interesting in air quotes.
There
They're like 3 miles tall.
have been a few occasions where somebody put their ex's name in on a certain character or two, which is fun.
oh, that's explosive.
Yeah.
I mean, profanity filters are really hard to
They are.
make not
And
completely
True.
jokes.
But it's also like if you don't have them, then you're going to get, the expected names, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, this shit didn't come in a vacuum. Ugh. Anyway.
yeah, and
Anyway.
there really is a bell curve to the naming thing. Some people lean on the it's a strange world that you have to survive with these really deadly creatures that you find. But some players like to name them fun names from Disney movies and things like that.
Oh, look,
And then
that's
you
a
have the
fluffy. That's a what?
yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, somebody did name one of the pack monsters puppy, and I've got a DLC that I'm working on, and I decided to put a puppy in, kind of an homage to that particular player.
I mean, whatever
Yeah.
works.
Anyway, so how does the actual system work? Like
Yeah.
the
So the game
like
mechanics and everything.
yeah that business.
So basically, what you've got one to several enemies in a particular encounter, and up to two characters. Some are single characters, and when I say characters, are you, Singer, Nichelle, and 10A. And each of the characters has their own deck. Their deck has unique cards in it, so no characters carry over the same kinds of cards. The cards are tied to their particular capabilities. Like I mentioned, Singer is a swords person. 10-8 is a robot, so he has some fun things that can go on. Um, and then, in addition to the character decks, there is what we call a story deck, which changes based on the particular location that you're in, the weather. We have weather effects in the game. So if there's a blinding storm, there will be cards that come up, and some of them autoplay, giving you challenges or benefits based on where you are. The story deck is available to both players. Um, so the first player that you see on the left hand side starts first, and they play their cards. They have a certain number of points to play, and then they end their turn, and it's the second player's turn. Um, there are teamwork cards. There's four different types of cards. There's attack, defense, um, teamwork cards, and special cards. And the teamwork cards, what those allow is they allow the first player to play a second player's card or vice versa. So if I'm player one and I see a really good card in the hand of character two, I can play that. I can choose to play that on my turn, and it takes the points away from the second character. So you can get some build-ups. For example, if you gets injured, she gains strength. And so, depending on the character, like if you get Nichelle as the character, she has a lot of buff cards with having to do with strength. They're teamwork cards. So you could get into a situation where the second character is basically buffing the heck out of the first one, and that accounts for how you get through that encounter. It can really multiply. So there's a lot of different combinations between each of the four different characters that way.
It sounds like it.
Oh, and there's one more mechanic in it. So um, the story cards basically are story cards. You play them for the points. The character cards basically there's a mechanic on it where you can deplete them. So every character card has four charges, if you will. Um, and as you deplete them, uh, different things happen on the card. So if you have a full card, many of the cards give you a benefit for having a full set of charges. When you get to the and you play it,
Was that me or did everybody drop?
I was just about to ask. I think the guest might have dropped.
Like, is he?
He still shows as here, but
Oh,
Live broadcasting.
yeah. Like, uh, Andy, are you still there?
You just posted something.
Oh,
Andy, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
yeah. Hang on. Did he post a message?
Yeah, put something in general.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Andy. Um. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Live.
Apologies for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we get
Like,
this sorted out. I'm gonna switch to the short trailer and just roll that for chat.
I'm like, uh, Technology, isn't it grand?
Yeah, sure, we'll call it grand.
Also, Andy, you might want to try disconnecting from the the audio server here and reconnecting.
I think we're trying to figure out how to do that.
I think he did that. I heard someone disconnect and reconnect.
That was me. I thought
okay.
my system. I thought my system had clunked out.
Yeah, if you push the hang up button at the bottom of the channel selection thing.
Okay, he did disconnect and reconnect.
Okay.
So like, yeah, I'm like, this is a
call sign.
Guess you could try literally closing Discord and restarting it.
Or you could try a full-on reboot. It's not optimal, but the options are a bit thin here.
Sorry, I wish I could troubleshoot better, but I can't do it very well without seeing what you're looking at.
Yeah, like he was having an echo problem, like before we got to broadcast.
I think some of that was you too.
Yeah.
No, it was a different thing. Let me finish. Like he had like the Discord thing still on. Like he found the source of that problem. So, point is, it's, kind of hard when you can't visually see.
Good thing we are not on a time crunch.
Yeah. And I'm gonna have to rewind to the start of what he was talking about because I have forgotten where we would, what he was.
Well, and it was right in the middle of this sentence.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah. So, nothing worse than dead air. Dead air.
Yeah. There we go.
I'm on my mobile device as I
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, that can function as a solution. So, not sure what happened there, but
Oh, I know exactly what happened.
Ooh.
My screen timed out, so it went to sleep because I wasn't. And when it did that, it horked something in there someplace. But as I come back on here on Discord, so sorry, where was I? What was the last thing you heard?
That's a good question. I think
I was talking about the cards. You heard story.
Right.
The depletion.
Yeah,
the depletion
mechanic. Meter thing.
Yeah. So basically, with the depletion mechanic, your cards have the 4 charges. You get to play them double. So you could get a double if you play the card double. There's also a shuttle as part of the system where since you had the shuttle, she has lots of different devices in there. So, for example, you can recharge a card with the currency, the energy currency that you have, or you can upgrade a weapon. You can create more consumables if you've found a consumable. And then there's also a synthesizer where you get to create your own card that has unique capabilities for your particular character.
Now, are there specialty cards? Like, for example, would the individual characters have special powers that they can activate via a card?
There are some cards that take advantage of a character's special powers, particularly the robot. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. I am going to jump off Discord on my phone. Okay, great. So yeah, there are some cards that tune to the particular characters. There's also cards that tune to the weapons that they carry. So in this game, it's not as if you have you get to carry 3 items with you. They're not all weapons. Some are defensive. You don't get a permanent benefit for the carrying those weapons. What you get is you get a different set of cards. So, for example, if you have the pyro launcher, the pyro launcher comes with 4 different cards on it. Usually they're advanced cards, and they're different for every character. So when you carries the pyro card, there are going to be different capabilities than when Nichelle carries the pyro card. Nichelle's capabilities tend to be more defensive in the game, so her use of that weapon will have more cards that are advanced defense cards, and you will have more aggressive attack cards. So that's the closest example to what you were asking about, Adam.
I see. And are there any sort of elemental augmentations that can be made to attacks or defenses?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this game has a very different kind of mechanic for defense. So basically, you do have defense, but it's in the form of evade. So what I wrestled with when I was designing the game, I really wanted it to be sort of cohesive with the theme of you're on an alien planet, and honestly, most of these monsters can kick your butt. So it's unlikely that you're carrying around lots of armor and things like that. They have armor, but what you do have is the capability to evade their attacks. You're faster, things like that. So that's how the defense system is set up, except for the robot. The robot is the only one with the capability of actually having a full-on defense. Um, and what allows the robot to do is play a little bit more of a tank kind of role, and it has more health. So I won't go into all the details of all the characters, but they all have different capabilities, kind of like that. And yes, the consumables can augment your defense. The items that you carry can augment your defense. There's a hollow shield that you can carry that gives you evade and things like that. So it all interacts with the different types of cards and the equipment you carry. Um, the equipment is really early on in the game. It's the only way you can get some of the more advanced good cards, if you will. They come with the equipment, but they also have depletion effects. And once you deplete those cards, unless you recharge them, you lose that. Essentially, that character loses that particular kind of item.
Hmm.
Again, going back to if I happen to find a flintlock rifle off the coast of a new continent, in the 1600s, I'm not going to have endless ammo. I'm not going to have, the thing will break at some point in time unless I fix it. So I was trying to keep it more along those kind of lines. Of course, this is sci-fi. There's a shuttle. You can repair things and so on.
Right.
Does that help?
I think it does. Right. So I will step back from the questioning a bit here, and I'll see if my colleagues here who are much more into card games, if they have any questions that they wish to ask about, card games and card game mechanics.
You didn't
I
have the death build with people grilling me.
I guess what kind of card games are you going for? Could this be played as a board game if you so desired, or is it something that can only be done on a computer?
That's a really good question. I imagine that it could be played as a board game. I mean, if you build it out, you would have to change some of the mechanics, and then you always have that challenge with collaborative games. You on the good side, you'd be able to add in more than one player, which could be fun in a board game. On the downside, you just have to trust that they do all the right things, and I really dislike board games that have, these tomes that you have to read through before you start the game while everybody else you want to play with is drinking something fun. So
And this
we
would be
would,
something more like less like a board game, like Parker Brothers, and more something akin to like
yeah,
D&D.
more like Munchkin. I mean,
Yeah,
I
Munchkin's
can
a
kind of
good
see.
apt comparison.
Yeah, not a lot of instructions, lots of cards. You learn through the cards. The onboarding is through the cards. You have different decks. So I could definitely see that path.
Mm. And I guess,
Okay.
how do you get more cards? Is it just through battle? Do you craft them?
Yeah, so
The
in the
typical stuff.
rewards, so there's about 30 missions, and each mission has, 2 to N different encounters in it. At the end of each encounter, you get a reward screen, and usually on that reward screen are cards you've seen before, new cards. If you're playing 2 characters, they each have their own set of rewards. You can also get the energy tokens, which are the currency in the game, and you can get consumables. Occasionally, at the end of a mission, you could find a new item, a new weapon. But that's generally how you get the cards. And the deeper you go in the game, the cards get upgraded. So I'd say probably about quarter to a third of the cards have upgrades for them that you eventually encounter. They do something extra to the original one, um, and so yeah, that's how that works. And then um, when you die, any upgrades you have to your equipment and any cards that you've unlocked are available to you.
And are used cards gone forever, or do they just kind of get shuffled back into the air quotes deck to come out later?
Um, it depends on whether or not you've depleted the card. What we want our goal in designing it this way was we were actually hoping a lot of players would learn that it's good to burn through your cards. It's good to deplete them and let them go because you'll get better ones the deeper in the game you go. We found with some players they find a card that they particularly like for whatever reason. They really want to hold on to it, so they just keep recharging the thing. Which is great. They just don't tend to get some of the diversity of the other cards that they might have, and then they burn through their currency, which they find pretty quickly is a problem.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
One of the things, though, that really helps out a lot of players, and it's just downright fun, is being able to create your own card. So there's some basic things you can add to your card, like you can add attack, you can add defense, you can reduce the cost of the card, and you only have a certain number of points to do that, 7. But for each particular character, you have some different capabilities that you can put on your card. So you can stack a card so that, for example, it does high damage and costs almost nothing, but that's all it does. And these cards that you create, they don't deplete, they don't ever go away, they don't exhaust, and so they could be really good when you get to the final end game.
Mm.
Now, are there multiple endings in this game?
Um, so to speak, yeah. Without giving away too much, um, the ending depends a bit on how many of your characters have survived.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the final battle, if you will, and there's a really good dark narrative associated with the end game. But if you survive the final battle, that's one ending. If you don't survive the final battle, that's another one. But all you need is one character to survive, to basically then win that battle. And then you see different things depending on how many of your comrades are dead.
Hmm.
And I guess
That makes sense.
for the custom
Go ahead.
cards, are they still usable if that, like, because I could see you put different characters on them? Are they still usable if that character's gone, or are the like images in the card just for flavor.
No, so each character has their own distinct, unique set of cards. So if you lose a character, you lose all of their card capabilities.
Mm.
So, for example, the robot is really good at a few different things. One of them is it can really boost strength. So if you get the robot and you, that's a really deadly combination, especially late game.
Mhm.
If you lose the U and you've been building your deck, use deck for strength, and you lose the ability to do double doubles on increasing your partner's strength because you lost the robot, now that puts you in a really tough position late game.
Mm. That's an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, so generally what most of us have found is people will gravitate towards particular combinations.
Mhm.
The strength mechanic one is a pretty easy one. The one I particularly like is there's a card called Wild Card, and basically what it does is if you have the character that has that is you. If you put her in the second character position and you have anybody else on the first character position, then that first character can play that teamwork card, and it basically replaces your hand with all new cards from used hand. So what that can do is, I'm playing character one, I burn through all of my cards, my points, and then I play this wild card because the points come from used hand, and then I get a whole new hand, and I can keep going. So if you've got something that's particularly insidious that you're almost ready to kill and you can play that card, you can finish it off before it gets to your second character.
Mhm.
And you can go back and forth because, of course, if your hand gets refilled but with used cards, one of those cards could be a wild card, and so you could refill use hand with and points, and when you refill the hand, all of those cards are for free. So you can get some really interesting back and forth. I particularly like that combination. That works for
Mm.
me.
I think that's all my questioning on this. Unless Gulix has anything else.
No, I think Petty Fan asked pretty much everything I had.
All right, great
All
questions,
right.
guys.
So, yeah. So stepping forward once again, uh, is there any sort of, how do we put this, um, romancing options in this game? Like, or is that just all through character stuff?
Uh, Romancing options.
Yeah, you laugh,
Yeah,
but
okay, I
this
heard
is
that right.
yeah.
Yeah, the catastrophe basically, without giving too much away, killed off all the existing romancing options. The Yu's partner Hadia was the captain of the ship. Um, she's not as much into masked people. Singer lost his wife and his kid. Spoiler alert here.
Mm.
The third character is a 16-year-old prodigy. So there's not really in this game, but in the DLC, there will be options for that.
Mm.
Ah, um, I suppose before we can talk about the DLC, I should ask about the music. Who
Mm-hmm.
created the music for you?
Uh, I have a composer, and he is amazing. He's been working with me for years through a number of different styles of video games. In fact, he has um, uh, the what do you call it? The soundtrack up on Steam as well.
Right.
But we really work through sort of, again, the narrative of, we want to create tense battle scenes, but we also want to have some of the sort of the feeling of loss in a number of the scenes, and they're just an amazing composer.
Okay.
Music is a
And
big deal for me with narrative. It's kind of
right.
always been in the games. You need to set the tone. We used real voice actors for this, So the acting constantly comes up in comments and streams and things like that. The narrative and the acting, because you really do get this feeling that they're real characters. They're not just one dimensional NPCs. Hopefully.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And let me see. So getting back to the DLC,
Mhm.
how substantial is this going to be in terms of, well, everything really?
So I say that last part again.
Oh, how substantial? Like, what is this adding to Castaway Station here?
So so basically, what happens is they're on the planet, and in this first game, they basically they're kind of boxed in by a sea and a mountain range, and there's something that happens in the ending where it's very clear that there are other survivors. Um, Turns out that most of them landed on the other side of the mountain range. The DLC basically brings in new characters from the other side of the mountain range, and in they basically you'll be able to start in either section. So you can either start with the original four, or you can start with the new ones. Because again, you start in the same way. They all landed. They don't know what's going on. They have to find each other. But in doing that, you get some radically different kinds of enemies on the other side of the mountain. There's a cave system, so it basically progresses the narrative. So at the end of the game, if you survive, you will have some extra characters, not playable characters, but you basically become responsible for the lives of the pods that you found with survivors, so your castaway station. And so now you have greater range in the DLC. You can find more and new characters, but you also are trying to build a stable defensive environment for everybody who survived this catastrophe, because they've got to live moving forward. And so you're creating more or less a community of these people that survived this thing, and you're never going to get a chance to get back to Earth.
Hmm. And what's the ETA on the DLC's release?
That's a really good question. Sadly, it comes down to financing. So right now, it's just me. I've got most of the design done, the narrative's done, the characters are defined, a lot of the details, the creatures, the any of the stats for anything that I can build into the god. I'm not a Unity developer. I need my team to do that. I'm not looking forward to doing the animation, so I'd love to get my animator back. But my expectation is I'm working on finding a publisher that will give some money to the DLC. We'll see how that goes. There's a few other options I'm looking at, but as soon as I get enough money to hire my team back and they're all ready to go, then it probably will take us about, I guess, maybe 2.5 months to finish that DLC.
Hmm.
Because again, much of the work is going to be in the game object database, not in the actual code. We're not radically changing a lot of the mechanics. There's one or two new mechanics that come into play, especially with respect to the creatures that you find. So what that means is we can actually do a lot of the work through the game object database itself.
Hmm. And you mentioned getting your team back. I'm guessing you had to lay them off at some point.
Well, they were always contractors worldwide. I never had a budget to actually hire them full
Ah,
time. So we were, a loose confederation of ships working on the same thing. So I have an illustrator in the Netherlands, one in South Africa, an animator in New Mexico, my composer's in Calgary, Alberta, my dev team is in Taiwan. But to a person, they all want to keep working on this. So they're ready to move forward when we have that opportunity. Oh, and I should have mentioned, you asked about my composer. Their name is Gray Orton. So I need to give a shout out to Gray.
Fair enough. And the main game has been out for quite a while now.
Yeah,
like-
last July.
So
Yeah, we've had a few updates, but none of them have been super major. The November one, I changed a lot of the early game, so it wasn't feeling so grindy when you died, and you die, of course. Changing the monster variety, adding more variety to the encounters, so that it's not as many linear paths. There's a lot of options on that. So that all came from feedback that I got.
more to the point, how has the game been faring in the marketplace since its release?
It's a slow roll. I learned a very hard life lesson with indie games. I budgeted enough to build the game, didn't budget really a whole lot on marketing side of things. So we've been doing a little bit here and there. You guys are a good example of that, but I don't have the big bucks to really get it out there. So it gets its peaks during some of the seasons of Steam, and when I post certain things online. Let's say it's not enough to keep Bad Zombie Games going just on its own. So um, that's the biggest challenge, I think, in finding a publisher, because that's the first question they'll ask. So it's like you need money to make money, and that's the catch 22. Hopefully, I've got a little bit of a Kobayashi Maru to get around that. We'll see how that turns out in a month or so.
I mean, at the very least, you do have a completed game to present them.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the very least, you could be looking to bring this game to console.
Say that again.
At the very least, the minimum would be bringing this game to consoles. The Switch,
Yeah.
PlayStation, all that.
Yep. I mean, it's out on iOS. I did have a few conversations with a few different developers, mostly in the Ukraine and Russia, around porting the game to different platforms. The challenge is, for them, they wanted to go in and basically have a percentage of the take, which I'm totally fine with. They just didn't think it would be enough for them. So if I can find the right group to do the porting over to another platform, or if I can, my dev team can do it too if I have the money. The good thing about some of these opportunities I've looked at, if the dev house wants to take on the sort of the effort to port it to platforms, I'm totally fine if they get a good chunk of the revenue from that. What I care more about is that it gets out and visible more than I do the dollars coming in at this point.
I see. And any thought or consideration to bringing Castaway Station to Android?
To where? Android?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was next on the list. We were just about a week shy of that. It took him a week to put it on iOS. We just ran out of gas. So you have to make hard choices when you're an indie and you have a certain burn rate and a certain budget. Unfortunately, it would be an easy port though, and so when I have that opportunity, that's actually first thing on the list.
Well, hopefully that is something that will be able to occur. In addition to bringing this game to consoles. But yeah, your story is definitely one we've heard on the program, especially in recent times.
Yeah, it's been tough.
The industry is going through rough times in general.
Yes,
So
I'm feeling it. Honestly, if I hadn't been laid off, I'd be able to keep funding this on my own. But sadly, that's not the case. So I do think though that it with a bit of time we'll be able to build this back up. So I it's one of those things where I used to work in startups. VCs 1 in 10 needs to work out, and it's golden. For me, I've talked to a lot of different publishers and call it financing mechanisms. One of those will work out. I just have to find the right one. So I just keep looking.
At least you're keeping an optimistic attitude.
Man, if you're an indie game company and you don't have an optimistic attitude, oh, it's dark.
This is true. This is very true.
Mhm.
Like,
On the good side, because I actually went through all the effort to create bad zombie games, I've gotten side hustles that work out pretty well. We just did an escape room for Emerald City Trapeze Arts that went fantastically.
Man.
So, now that I have a
Yeah.
company, I can do other things with it.
I mean, that's quite the side hustle, if nothing else.
Mhm.
Right?
Anyway, so I think I've run through my gamut of questions on Castaway Station. So with
I
that,
really
I think
appreciate the questions.
it's good that you enjoyed answering them.
Mhm.
Like,
Believe me,
um,
we have had interviewees who have been very standoffish and like pulling teeth getting them to answer our questions.
standoffish, fearful, just blunt or brief. There's all sorts of frustrating interviews from our perspective.
There's also
This was
kind of
one
wants
them.
to say things, but then keeps remembering that everything they want to say is under NDA.
Oh, those are fun ones.
Oh,
Air quotes on fun.
Oh,
oh
God.
boy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, ugh.
And let's not forget
Yeah.
about the dude who broke somebody else's NDA in our show, and that was a fun edit.
Oh man.
At least he did the editing.
Yeah.
Well, this is all about games. Games should be fun, right? Even
Mhm.
if they're dark survival roguelike
I mean,
games.
that's actually its own philosophy that
Mhm.
we do not have time to get into, because there are absolutely people who make games who do not believe that games should be fun, or games need to be frustrating to be fun. But like I said, that is
That is a perspective.
yeah,
Mhm.
that is a philosophy argument right there. But frankly,
Yeah.
anyway, with that in mind, the game is Castaway Station. It is currently available on Steam and iOS. It is
And the
currently
Epic
retailing. The Epic Store. I keep forgetting that
I-
exists.
I know. Me too.
Like, anyway, the game is retailing for $15.99. How much is it going for on iOS?
$4.99.
Okay. Any sort of in-app purchases there?
No, nothing like that.
Surprising. Anyway, you can also get the Castaway Station Plus soundtrack for $18.88. So,
Which includes the
whatever
game.
option, yep, whatever option you wish to pursue, be sure to pick Castaway Station up today. And
And thank you
Petty,
guys
play us
all.
to the next segment. Sure. And we're going to need a deep breath for this one. Like, right. So,
We almost had a
Microsoft,
happy
Microsoft
topic.
spent several years buying every available studio, then decides it can't handle having too many studios and kills half of its studio and kills several studios and it makes cuts at one more. Then complains that they don't have enough games like the games produced by one of the studios they just killed.
That
all
is
right, slow down
universally
there.
loved.
Yeah, I'm like, relax. We don't have a time crunch this week, so you don't have to speed through everything in a sentence. But with that in mind, yeah, that is the broad strokes of what happened just 24 hours and some change ago at time of recording. Like, in real terms, Microsoft hasn't cut all that much from its empire in terms of, like not just their overall gaming empire, but Bethesda in general. Like,
They own a lot of shit.
yeah.
The main
It's
issue
also-
is that
Yeah.
what they did cut definitely
Well-
makes a certain statement about their priorities in terms of what they want to make.
Somewhat yes, somewhat no, because as we have a fair bit more insight into the industry than other people, just because we know and we talk and we interview game dev people all the time. But even that, it's like, I'm going to put this succinctly, but it may take some explaining. What Microsoft did here today was literally who has to do some patch editing tomorrow.
Maybe.
We're back.
Timer
Okay.
didn't reset. There's just a hole. I can live with that.
All right. Apologies for that. Once again, the technology seems to be temperamental tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, always unfortunate. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, we. Sorry. I hate it when I lose the train of thought.
What Microsoft
Also-
did was just business.
Oh, right. Also, there might be another problem with the stream. Like, we got some cartoons. Oh, sorry. That's Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I thought it was Shout Factory.
No.
Still.
No.
Oh, like an ad. Yeah. No, the overlay's still there. So.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm like, anyway, getting back to Microsoft issued an edict the other day saying to Bethesda that they have to do some cost cutting at their business, and they have to get rid of some people, and they have to get rid of some entire studio. Like, so Bethesda did that, and well, in the case of the studios that people were actually upset about, they they are in what's called the pitching stage. It's like, contrary to what's been said on Twitter, it's not that Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks were specifically axed because they were pitching games. No, they are in the they have recently released games, and in the case of Tango Gameworks, they've, as far to our knowledge, they've finished up everything to do with Hi-Fi Rush.
Mhm.
They just released it on the PlayStation 5. I know there was a rumored Switch port, but like, I don't think a Switch port was ever in the works, given that this is a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X game.
Yeah, it was certainly going to be harder.
If it
Yeah.
does come out, it's going to be done by a different porting house, obviously.
Well, it's like that's less of an issue.
Yeah.
Spoiler, like, just to name other Microsoft games that have come out on other platforms, Grounded and Sea of Thieves, they were ported by outside contracted developers.
Mhm.
Like if Microsoft Bethesda wants to bring Hi-Fi Rush to the Switch 2, they'll find somebody to do that. That's not a concern.
Mhm.
It's just there won't be a Tango Gameworks to oversee that in the future.
Mhm.
Like, so, and in the case of Arcane Austin, they were, they were more active than Tango Gameworks, if only because they were still doing DLC for Redfall.
Mhm.
That cursed fate.
Yeah, the whole joke with that is it was over a year and they still haven't got the DLC they were promised?
Yes. In fact, there's still a major DLC pack that hasn't come out, the Heroes pack,
Mhm.
which included a couple of characters that aren't out yet. And Microsoft has so far just offered some vague, or, at first they offered some vague recompense, but now it's just like, Redfall is Deadfall.
Mm.
I mean, like, all development stopped.
Mhm.
It's like, which is, I suppose, frustrating for those who are still playing Redfall, but I'm going to be honest here. I'm surprised Redfall got a year and a half's worth of support.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, Redfall never stopped being a disaster, never turned the corner, never regained its player base. Which isn't a surprise because all of the development that's been done on Redfall has been, DLC, support stuff. Redfall needs a Final Fantasy 14 / No Man's Sky level reworking. And there was just not enough justification to ever put that much effort into
Mhm.
turning the corner on Redfall. Let's face facts here. Which is why the reaction to Arcane Austin has been more muted. There's still people who are upset, but it's definitely not as many as Tango Gameworks, because this is the unfortunate fact here. Their last project was Hi-Fi Rush, an all-time classic, beloved by everyone who played it.
Mhm.
Redfall is one of the bigger disasters in the live service industry, which is saying, which is saying a lot, actually. So they were apparently pitching a sequel to one of their old immersive sim games, which, I'll be honest, probably was Dishonored 3, because I have doubts that Prey 2017 would ever get a fucking sequel.
Mhm.
Not, here's the thing about that game. Prey 2017 did bad in the business department. Pretty famously so.
Yeah.
Which is probably another factor into why Arcane Austin got the axe. In terms of business, they're coming off of 2 bombs.
Mhm.
that can't be ignored, and apparently wasn't.
Right.
And like I said, it's also they were in the pitching process, so they were expendable. Tango GameWorks, outside of it being business, is a head scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, because Microsoft execs have claimed things in video gaming that Tango GameWorks delivers. Like, Microsoft execs, like Matt Booty, Phil Spencer, et al., claim they want small studios that release prestige titles and claim they want a bigger presence in the Japanese video gaming scene. But what did you do? Oh, right. You killed, one of the studios that makes those kind of games sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, it should be remembered that Hi-Fi Rush is a bit of an anomaly, is a complete anomaly in the release library of Tango GameWorks.
Yeah, didn't they mostly do like weird survival horror stuff?
Yeah.
That
AAA.
and they also
Yeah.
did Ghostwire.
Yeah. Which isn't quite as survival horror-y, but it's connected to horror.
Mm-hmm.
For what I understand.
And particularly
And
Japanese
I mean,
horror.
I do ultimately believe what they said, that we had the idea for this, and it was a really great idea, but we knew that if we tried to explain it to people, they wouldn't get it, so we decided to just do it.
Yeah.
But
putting that aside, I think Hi-Fi Rush has warped some people's perception a bit. It's like Tango GameWorks is, they're not a small studio that works on small games primarily. They're a AAA developer that makes AAA level games.
Mm-hmm.
Hi-Fi Rush was the exception, not the rule.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they are a AAA developer who just happened to have a, for lack of a better word, an indie idea and decided to just do it.
Right. This would be like thinking Obsidian is represented by Pentiment. It's a good game, fantastic game, indie level production and all that. It is not representative of what Obsidian primarily does. I could go on, but I think that gets the example across.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's purported that that Tango GameWorks wanted to do a Hi-Fi Rush 2. But here's the thing. They might, it also sounds like they didn't want to do it at the same level of Hi-Fi Rush 1. Because they wanted to hire additional staffers.
Like gas.
And apparently that was the straw that broke the camel's back here. Both cases. It's like that they would have to increase the headcounts. Which is exactly the opposite of what Microsoft wants right now. So, and also Hi-Fi Rush 2 would have been a sequel. So, what's one of the main expectations for sequel? That there's more of it. It's bigger, bolder, louder, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. 7 times the detail. Wait, no, hold on.
Or to put it on the inverse, mission-packed sequels, as they're called, don't get the highest of reputations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, like, more of the same would have been fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think that would have been looked for in terms of the people creating the game. at any rate, also in this conversation, but not in this conversation, is Alpha Dog, Bethesda's mobile game studio that's been behind the game Mighty Doom, which I guess I have no idea how successful that was. But once again, apparently not successful enough to keep around. Also, one of the main motivations for Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard is they wanted King, one of the top mobile game developers in terms of revenue. I mean, creativity, they're at the bottom of the barrel here, but they bring in the mobile monies.
Well, and also they don't have to keep paying them to use Saga.
I suppose, but point is, they really wanted King to be their entry into the mobile space because, while the mobile space is the most richest ecosystem, like it is literally half the game industry by revenue. Like,
especially at this point in time.
Yeah,
and especially outside of the US, it is huge. Like, it's big in the US, but Asia, it's gigantic.
Oh yeah.
There are literally billions in that market, and I'm not even. I might actually be lowballing it.
Well, it's also, mobile gaming is hot in areas where other gaming segments are not. Like India is a good example. Like, mobile gaming is huge in India.
Yeah, India, China.
There are many places where no one has the space or money or connectivity or even like literally power supply to have a desktop PC or even a laptop, really, where still most people have smartphones.
Or even just a console.
Or even a console, yeah.
Like, also, there are some cultural things that we have that they don't, like pay to win. Like, how big of a powder keg that can be in Western circles.
Yeah.
Not a concern in like Southern Asia,
particularly in Korea,
and Eastern
having
Asian.
a high money account is a badge of honor.
Yeah, like so. But we're getting off track here.
Yeah,
that's
a topic
point
for
is,
another time in and of itself.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how deeply we could speak to it because none of us have ever been to like Korea.
Right.
Anyway, point is, Microsoft wants in on that market. But here's the thing. In order to get in on that market, you pretty much have to get one of the top mobile game devs. Because, you might hit the jackpot. You might create a Genshin Impact.
Making a mobile game isn't hard. Making a good mobile game.
Yeah.
No, not making a good mobile game. Making a
successful one. But
a successful one. A mega level successful one is quite hard. I mean, for fuck's sakes, ask Square Enix about it. How many fucking mobile games they've shut down in the past couple of years? They're not the only ones. It is a very competitive market. So if you can get a hold of the makers of like Candy Crush or Clash of Clans or Monopoly Go, and Monopoly Go is another one that's made it big recently. Like ask anyone who's watched any amount of internet, TV, anything.
Like, I know that's not what it is, but now I'm picturing Monopoly with the board game Go combined somehow.
That would be more interesting than the actual Monopoly Go, in my estimation. Like, anyway, Point is, if you can buy one of those, all the better. And that's what Microsoft did. In fact, Activision Blizzard is at the heart of this matter.
Buying
Because
Tencent isn't exactly an option.
Well, that's mainly because they're in China.
Also, they're probably one of the few companies bigger than fucking Microsoft.
By revenue, no. But, Microsoft would have problems getting a hold of, the entirety of Tencent. But putting that aside, they've spent a collective $100 billion on acquisitions in the last 5 or so years. Or at least that's what's being estimated. Like, it's not that much, but they've spent, just in terms of buying Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda, like $75 billion.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah. That's not even including like the court case and shit like that.
They spent more than many of us will ever see in our lifetimes on this.
They've spent more money than several nations' GDP.
In their existence, even.
Yep. So, with that amount of money comes greater expectations and comes greater scrutiny. It's also, and here's the really concerned part. I know a lot of people on Twitter have been complaining about infinite growth, blah blah blah. Microsoft would be happy with any growth right now. Here's the dirty little secret, or perhaps unless you read their court documents, where they have to be open about this shit. Microsoft's gaming endeavors are failing.
They are, of the big three, they are doing the worst.
Yes. They are stagnant.
Which is a nice trick, seeing as how insert reference to Sony having like 5 exclusive games on their newest console.
Well, yeah, but they've also
but they've also sold 55 million PlayStation.
Oh, yeah, the ones they have are doing very well. Yes, that's why.
No, it's like the problem with the PlayStation 5 is Sony's expectations. Like they don't have they don't see the PlayStation 5 doing as good as the PlayStation 4, for example. Which is bad because that means there's a decline in hardware sales, generationally speaking. And this is where the Sony not having the exclusives comes into play, because they literally have nothing this year in terms of franchises. I mean, yeah, they got lucky with Helldivers 2 as a game, but Helldivers 2 is a Mega Smash hit on PC, less so PlayStation 5. This is why we were going to talk about it until yesterday. But point is, Sony has outsold Microsoft's machines 2-1 again.
Yeah.
I
mean, I could see last generation because they royally botched with the Xbox One.
Well, once again, what reason has there been to buy the Xbox Series X? Or Xbox Series S?
Like, the only real benefit the Xbox has over the PlayStation is Game Pass. That's it. And Game Pass is now available on PC, so what do I need an Xbox for?
Well, even putting that aside, Game Pass has stagnated. Because, okay, in 2021, 2022, a few years back, Phil Spencer or Matt Booty, like one of the Microsoft execs, was making some pretty optimistic projections for both the Xbox Series X and Game Pass. Like, they were projecting that they were going to sell 70 to 80 million Xbox Series X's
Cute.
by end of lifetime. And by 2030, they would have had 100 million Game Pass subscriptions. Do you start to see the problem here?
Yeah.
There is no way on God's green earth they are reaching any of those projections.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's why they bought Activision Blizzard. Like, Microsoft may be transforming into a full-on third-party developer.
Yeah.
You know,
Going the way that
it's-
Sega did before them.
yeah, it's like, I'm not trying to get into conspiracy theories and all that stuff, but Microsoft's gaming endeavors outside of Activision Blizzard have been doing poorly. And not just in terms of the numbers. Dear God, the actual management of these studios has been fucking awful.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really talked about it, but it's time to fucking talk about it. And I'm talking squarely about Xbox Game Studios. Oh God, where do I begin?
In the
I think
beginning,
I know it.
no, hold on.
No. Fucking Halo Infinite.
Oh, yikes, we're
We
going to
talked
hell
about.
in the start, aren't we?
Well, I mean, we talked about Halo Infinite's problems previously,
I'm aware.
but they're not the only ones. Let me see. Like I said, there's so many cases I can point to. It's fucking unreal. Like Forza Motorsport. Like, though that might just be the PC version. Like, honestly, on balance, Turn 10 has been doing phenomenal in terms of actually releasing games.
Yeah, I played a Ford, one of the Fords, I think it's like Horizon on the Xbox One, and it's fine, but the PC version is, oh God.
Mm. That's kind of a misdemeanor in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, because Hellblade 2, like,
oh
this,
yeah,
oh,
looking into
okay.
that.
Yeah, Hellblade 2 has been brought up a lot because this is another, like, okay, on the one hand, this seems to be a small scale title. A to triple or to what we call A to double A development game. It's going to be sold at for $40. It's not getting a retail release. It's predicted to be not all that long. Do you know how long this game has been in fucking development for?
5 years?
Yes.
Hey,
5 to 6 years.
Yeah. And when you
I'm
figure
like,
in development costs and that, this is a multi-million-dollar endeavor.
and that's why people are fearing that Ninja Theory may be next on the chopping block. Because here's the thing. Hellblade 1 did really good business. But that's because that was what was being billed as an indie AAA game. And that was actually true because Hellblade 1 was built by 15 to 20 people.
If that, yeah.
Which is fucking nuts if you've actually seen that game. Like it is the game that has actually reached the closest to that triple I, indie AAA designation. It certainly fits it better than fucking Biomutant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but anyway, people don't really expect Hellblade 2 to be doing much business. Especially since Microsoft hasn't really been putting the ad dollars behind it.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I forgot it was coming out this year.
Yeah, it's coming out in a couple months. Let me look it up. Like, I know it's coming up here soon.
The last thing I heard was the frame rate controversy, and then nothing else.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of my point. Like, yeah, here it is. May 21st, it's coming out.
In less than 2 weeks.
Yep.
Good Lord.
And
are they even playing it? I'm going to check Game Pass real quick. Sorry if people were watching the gameplay. Because since it is...
I'm like...
Yeah, it is up on coming soon on Game Pass. This is probably the most advertising they've put into this game. It's as soon as Saga Hellblade 2. Yeah, 12
and
days.
Once again, this is why people are hearing the sound of knives sharpening.
Yeah?
Like, because, yeah, if I had to worry about a Xbox studio, a studio under Xbox Game Studios banner shutting down, one of my first picks would be Ninja Theory. Guess another one would be Double Fine. Not so much In Exile or Obsidian.
I don't see them just shutting down Double Fine. I'd imagine with its pedigree, they'd see about spinning it off again first. Because...
Possibly. It's also Double Fine's probably neck deep into whatever they're developing next, because Psychonauts 2 was a couple of years ago at this point.
I was just playing that. Where is it?
Yeah. Also, another irony is Microsoft's 2024 lineup. They've actually got games this year.
Shock.
Like, not just from Xbox, but, Bethesda.
2 was released in 2021.
Yeah. So they're definitely knee-deep into whatever they're doing next. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really worried about Double Fine.
Work, though. I don't remember hearing anything about a new game from them, unless it's still under wraps.
It's still under wraps, my dude. Like, they haven't announced it, but to say that they've been going 3 years without doing jack shit, that doesn't happen.
Double Fine's one of those ones that has a pedigree. You're not throwing them as support studio.
No, I'm like, my point is, like, Double Fine's working on something. I'd say, Ninja Theory is going to be the most vulnerable because they're about to release a game, and I don't think anyone's expecting this to do well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good recipe for the chopping block.
Right.
But on the other hand, I also, how do I put this? Like, this is perhaps a bit sensitive to say. It's more, I can't look past the fact that, they've taken 5 years to develop this.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of emblematic of the problems facing AAA game development at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Even something like Hellblade 2 is taking 5-6 years to get out the door.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the trailers for it, back in the day, this would have been like an 8-month turnaround time.
Yeah, I'm like, Hellblade 1, maybe not that fast, but did not take 5 years to make. Mm-hmm. It's like, in times previous, a game taking 5 to 6 years to come out, that was a sign of development health.
Mm.
So there's also rumors that the Hellblade 2 might hit the PlayStation 5. I'd buy it.
Yeah.
Like Hellblade 2 seems like exactly the kind of game Microsoft is going to be looking to bring to other platforms.
Right.
Like it, its closest parallel is fucking Hi-Fi Rush.
Indeed. Have I mentioned Hi-Fi Rush is a good game? Y'all should go play it.
It might have come up.
I know I'm not doing it justice on stream, but I also can't hear it because we need to, talk.
Now, as far as the people who are gnashing and braying and saying that they'll never buy a Microsoft product, that they're done with Xbox, I'm like,
Okay.
I don't believe you. I'm like, here's the thing about gamer outrage. It's 9 times out of 10, it's just blowing steam out.
Most of those people weren't going to buy an Xbox thing anyway. They're just
Right.
doing it for internet clout.
Yeah. Or if they are, no, they're going to be back. They're going to be back buying the next Gears of War game. I mean, that's rumored to, apparently, like Gears 6 or Gears of War Collection might be in the pipeline. Like, so Microsoft, the Xbox faithful probably going to buy that because that's one of the big Xbox 10 polls. And it's also worth noting, the problem with being a small prestige title is that means you're critically acclaimed, but not that many people played you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Hi-Fi Rush seemed to have good engagement on Game Pass, and Microsoft has said it was a success by every metric of theirs, but the studio's still dead.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make a Brazilian dollars, and there was no way to keep spending money on it after you finished it. Some people actually probably finished the game on Game Pass.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Also, in another sign of just how much of a shit show Xbox management is, like they can't even stick to an excuse because in their in their internal email that went out announcing these closures, they mentioned that they wanted Bethesda to focus on high impact franchises, i.e., Microsoft wants Bethesda to focus on Elder Scrolls, Fallout, maybe not so much Starfield.
The less we go into Starfield, the better. Ooh, that game pisses me off.
Doom.
I like Doom.
I know some people are worried about id Software. I'm not worried about id Software.
Yeah, it's something like Double Fine. It has a pedigree. They kill off id or Double Fine, heads will literally be rolling down Redmond.
Yeah, maybe, but people are not putting past anything with Microsoft, nor should they. And it's absolutely correct. Yeah, Microsoft's not your friend, and all that business. Microsoft's a soulless, heartless corporation that thinks about the numbers first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been, and Microsoft's never been gun shy about closing studios. Believe me, I've watched Microsoft kill some studios that I liked, like Ensemble Studios,
Mm-hmm.
the original Age of Empire developers.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, Hi-Fi Rush may not be dead either.
Yes, because Microsoft still owns the IP.
Right. And what often happens is, like Toys for Bob, they were allowed to go independent, and it's suspected they're working on a new Spyro game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Tango Gameworks may reform as a new entity. Clover Studios, the Platinum game.
Yeah.
And they may end up doing, if not, contacting Microsoft to, Bethesda, whatever, to work on Hi-Fi Rush, or, maybe The Evil Within 3. That seems less likely, but
I was about to say I haven't really played it, but from what I've heard, it seems the story on that is complete, so it would be something new.
yeah, I need to play The Evil Within 2. I played a good chunk of 1, though I
It's
think that
available on Game Pass.
yeah. Anyway, the point is, Microsoft may not be done. Nobody is safe, blah, 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 blah. But there's not much that can be done about that.
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen a whole bunch of, consolidation is bad. And I'm like, so here's the thing. If consolidation can absolutely be bad, as we're seeing, but consolidation can also be good. I know that may be not a popular stance to take, but okay, going back to Tango Gameworks, if they hadn't gotten bought by Bethesda back when they were just starting out, they would have died in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's apparently what Shinji Mikami himself said recently about Tango Gameworks.
Right.
They hit some huge financial problems, and they need. And here's the thing. Most of the time, that's why a lot of these indie studios seek to get bought out. They're either having financial insecurity, or they're having financial problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we have talked about on this program time and again, the indie road is not an easy one.
No, it is not.
It's like there's no safety anywhere. But you need to have money in order to make games, especially of a certain size. So getting back to what I was saying, Tango Gameworks got bought out and apparently technically merged with ZeniMax Asia or ZeniMax Japan or something like that, and was actually its legal name was ZeniMax Asia, but it kept the Tango Gameworks name as a brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those legal distinctions that nobody outside of the people who work there care about.
Mm-hmm.
A point is, Bethesda snatching Tango Gameworks allowed Tango Gameworks to release the Evil Within series, and Tokyo Ghostwire, and Hi-Fi Rush. So that was a case of consolidation, as we understand it, helping. And there are other examples of that. But yes, consolidation comes at a cost of, being sort of the master of your own destiny. I say sort of because, once again, it depends on, your size and what you're trying to build. If you're trying to build, big boy games, let's say, you're probably going to need a publisher, investors, one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, even if they don't own you, you still got to deal with money men.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this shit isn't late stage capitalism. It's like, that is a made up term invented by Marxists that were hoping that capitalism would fail. I'm not joking. That's what that's supposed to mean. Like, we're at the last stage of capitalism's collapse. I don't know if you've noticed, but capitalism doesn't seem to ever collapse.
Unfortunately.
Like when is the collapse supposed to happen, guys? I'm like, what I saw collapse was your fucking ideology. Pretty hard too. Like,
But this is the wrong podcast beginning to that one.
right? It's just a term that fucking annoys me.
I know.
I'm like, because anyway, but yeah, that is the name of the game. This is all capitalism. No, it's like nobody's. It's the video game industry. Yes, there's a lot of art here. There's a lot of creativity, but it's also a business. Like, if you want games that are art for art's sake, you got to look for the game jams. You got to look for, the really weird indie shit on Steam.
Itch.io is right over there. Go take a look.
Yeah. Like, that's the space for art, for art's sake in video gaming. Like, nobody is going to build a AAA art project in the purest sense of the word. Like, you'll still get that, but that either comes from indie or the very rare auteur in video gaming. Like,
looking at you, Kojima.
Yeah, Hideo Kojima. Nintendo would also qualify. Not so much, like, they're a bit weird. They're a bit more unconventional. They're not big into auteur theory and all that. Games as a narrative, games of art. They're more. Think of them as the top artisan of their, of like Pisa or Florence. The top goldsmith. They're not. They still make. They're still a business. And they make the top quality products you can imagine, and they're very proud of the art in that. It's very weird, but it's also very Nintendo, isn't it? Anyway, so unfortunately, this is about all we can do in terms of because the studio that Microsoft owns are still the studio that Microsoft owns. There's the possibility that we get another Toys for Bob situation. I'm like, now, maybe the circumstances around Tango Gameworks was just such that they couldn't do that because of Japanese law, for example. Like, you got to keep in mind, different nations have different procedures, different laws, different everything for doing things. But hopefully, the people laid off will find work again. But what Microsoft doing here, it's not dissimilar what Sony's been doing. Embracer, EA, Sega, Just, this is a sign of the times. This is a sign of the industry. I'm like, yes, some of it is Microsoft overpaid on its acquisitions. Now, that's some companies. Some of it is because they have a lot of debt. Some of it is because their businesses are failing. Some of it is because interest rates are high. That's the silent killer right here. Money's more expensive. And I don't have time to conduct a monetary class here. Like, hopefully when we come back, we'll have something brighter to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, with that in mind, I think we should wrap this episode up.
Indeed.
So, coming up on the week ahead, well, as mentioned, the only thing left on our docket is our final show on Friday, May 10th.
Well, the
Season
final show
finale.
of the season. The show itself's not going anywhere. We just need to take a break.
Yes. Me in particular needs the break. Anyway, coming on Friday, May 10th, we will be having Elena Alabagari of Limited Run Games on the program. I'm like, once again, I should hope Limited Run Games needs no introduction. They're kind of a big wheel in the indie game scene, providing retail releases for a lot of indie games and for a lot of games that would not otherwise get retail releases. Good example is they have a pre-order going on for Rogue Legacy 2. And another one for Nightmare Reaper, which we reviewed last year for the program. But they're also working with Konami on re-releasing a bunch of old games from their catalog. So, probably going to have a lot of talk about their Carbon engine. I know, in my email correspondence, they've been very keen to highlight that. Though unfortunately, they wanted to, but they couldn't get anyone from the Carbon engine team to us for this interview.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunate, but them's the break sometimes. Anyway, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.